headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Tice is here. Very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you,
You're
Mike.
looking younger. How is that? What's going on with that?
Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that it's Friday.
Could be.
The end of another week, Mike, of madness,
Yes.
where you're beginning to wonder sort of what are the most important things. And my concern here, following your intro, is that I wonder whether actually the reason that many people have sort of moved on from Partygate, and the Prime Minister has done a good job of ensuring it gets kicked down the road, is because people are much more focused on the bills that are landing on all of our doorsteps.
Yes.
The utility bills, the tax bills that's coming down the pipe, and so on. And these are the things that actually makes a difference as to what, the quality of life that people can enjoy. Whether you're literally faced with the decision, are you going to heat or are you going to eat? And I think there's some really big decisions that this government and this Prime Minister essentially are delaying, some common sense decisions, because they've been so consumed by this Partygate. And maybe that's the reason that actually the public realise, look, come on, folks, the Partygate is irritating, it annoyed everybody massively and still does. But we want some decisions on these critical issues. But here's the reason, Mike, why it does actually matter. And that is that on the international stage, we've got a ruling party that seems to accept that it's okay for this great country, a member of the G7, to have a proven, compulsive liar as the head of the country, as the Prime Minister. And not only do most people in this country realise it, whether or not you're pro or for Boris. Sorry, I've breached the rule. That's a shocker.
Technically speaking, it's only a yellow card.
It's a yellow card.
Name.
We'll try better.
But here's the thing. But not only that, but it's like a virtue. The fact that he tells lies apparently is seen as a strength.
Which it's absolutely not.
Which is a bit odd, isn't it?
And not only is it people in this country, but on the international stage, people can see that this country is led by a party that is willing to accept a leader that is someone who just has a very, very tenuous relationship with the truth. At the best, it's like a sort of a string of cotton that can snap at any particular moment. And I just don't think it's good enough for this country. No. I really don't. We're better than that.
Well, the thing that I would ask, and I would put this to everybody who has been on this week saying, why are you going on about it? Why don't you move on? Why don't you just, talk about the important things? Well, because it's all the same. The important things, which are the migrant crisis, which is still going on, the tax rises, which are still, as far as I know, about to happen in April, the NHS crisis, which is still going on, which nobody's fixing, all of the things that have been a problem, and all of the things that Conservatives are asking about why we're not doing them with the Conservative government, it's all connected. If you really think that the man whose name shall not be mentioned is going to be successful and he's going to get through this Partygate thing, what do you think he's going to do next? What do you think he's going to do next year?
It's hard to know, but the real danger for us as a country, as a nation, is when you hear words from the Prime Minister or from other ministers, almost about anything. They sound good and you want to believe them, but then you know that actually, well, can I believe them? Because do they ever deliver on any of this stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on, quite rightly, the issue of the migrant crisis.
Yeah. And
in the first month of this year, I think it's something like 4 times the number of illegal crossings from January last year.
Yeah.
That sets a trend of over 100,000 potentially this year. Now, I've been forecasting over 50 to 60,000 people coming across the channel. And again, this is something that needs to be dealt with, needs to be stopped.
And it's something that everyone cares about.
Everybody cares about it. It's really important. It requires some big, brave, bold decisions. But this government is incapable of doing that. It just talks warm words, but never, does it actually deliver on anything?
But that's the other thing. I mean, let's actually look at how this government performs, whether it's, worth its weight in gold, whether in fact it's fit for purpose. And the answer to all of those questions is, quite frankly, it's not. It governs by kind of crisis management. Whenever something sort of jumps up in front of them, they go, oh, Christ, better get that fixed. And then they move on to the next crisis.
But Mike, let's be optimistic. Actually, there's no reason why this government can't perform. There are some competent people there, and I think some of them do actually believe what they're trying to do. And so you have to say, come on, guys, you're talking about it. You've got a massive majority. Do these things.
Yeah.
Actually, the state of the government's finances is much better than they give it credit for. The government can easily afford to cut taxes to go for growth, but for some reason it doesn't. So it can easily afford that. It can easily stand up to the EU bullies and say, we are going to invoke the Article 16 protocol in a couple of weeks unless you properly change the way that it's working. And so they can do that. They could easily say to France, we're going to bring the illegal migrants, we're going to bring them back to Dunkirk and to Calais.
Right.
And yes, the French will get a bit grumpy, but they don't have the courage to do this stuff. And I think most people would say, come on, you can do it. You've got a big majority. The country voted you in. The country wants you to get some of this stuff done. And I'm going to talk about it a lot on Sunday, Mike. But we have this huge pile of treasure under our feet. It's called shale gas. And if we use that treasure, then we can slash our gas bills. We don't need to worry about raising taxes. We can cut taxes.
We don't have to be reliant upon a foreign gas or foreign electricity or foreign companies or Vladimir Putin to provide us with enough heat to keep us warm over the course of the winter. It seems to me that they don't really do anything until they absolutely have to. It's like, it's a minute to midnight and they go, oh, we better do something because otherwise it's all going to fall down around our ears. They seem to have no policies at all. And I'm sorry to turn this into a massive attack on the man who shouldn't be named. But, I'm sick to death of all these people who go, but he's great. Well, how's he great? What's great about him exactly?
He's a great salesman. He's a good orator.
Yeah, but there's nothing in the back of the shop. It's like he's running one of those mafia fronts. Where
well, as we all know, with good salesmen, that's very often the case. Well,
exactly. You
very often
hire
they
a shop,
overpromise and underdeliver.
Hire a shop front, get somebody to sign the piece of paper, and go, yeah, we'll send it round as soon as you get home, and then they move the shop.
Exactly. But I do want to try and be optimistic because we can do this stuff. We can make these decisions, and yet they don't, and it's that sort of constant. Is it because they're being held up by the civil service, or is it because actually they're permanently jockeying for position and power and favour with the Prime Minister? Sometimes it's hard to tell, but I get a sense, and I've really noticed this over the last couple of weeks. New year, new mood. Come on, let's move on. And as you quite rightly said, COVID, mercifully, we are now in the sort of the endemic stage. I think the vast majority of people realise that we're learning to live with it quite successfully as a people. We're viewing it as in a sense, it's another form of flu, and for some it can be very nasty, and for others it can be incredibly mild. You barely know you've had it, but we've got to learn to live with it. And people just want to move on, get on with their lives. But equally, people want to be led by a government that will make some proper leading decisions that make common sense.
But that's the point. If it's all very well for you to say, move on, let's forget about it, let's just put it behind us and go, look, everybody broke the rule to some extent, one way or the other. We're not really requiring a police investigation that goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And this morning, of course, the police have come out and said, and that's the sort of breaking news that we will bring you, they don't want too much detail on the parties in Sue Gray's report. You're kind of going, sorry, that's what the report's about, isn't it? So if it's not about the parties, what is it about then?
It is remarkable, and you end up thinking, well, maybe the reason that they're not making these big decisions is because they're so consumed with finding ways to kick the can down the road.
Right.
And it is, of course, very convenient that the Met Police appear to have said in the report, please don't talk too much about what went on in number 10. It appears they're saying, we don't mind how much you talk about what went on in some of the other departments, but not what went on in number 10. And you think, well, that may be very convenient to the Prime Minister indeed. And you really think, the cynic in one could say, well, is this Cressida Dick, the Met Police Commissioner, repaying Boris a favour because he extended her contract by a couple of years, describing her in brilliantly glowing terms as the continuity candidate.
Yes.
Hardly a ringing endorsement.
Well, not really, is it? And I mean, we're reading this morning that it could be months now before we even see the Sue Gray report, never mind the police report. And so I can't help but think that this is an orchestrated effort by Downing Street to keep it all under wraps, just to keep it going for as long as possible, telescopic sort of, futuring, and looking down the wrong end of the telescope so it looks further and further away. And by that time, everyone will have forgotten about it. I think it's terribly cynical and very insulting to the public.
It's very convenient for number 10 and for the Prime Minister. And there was a very interesting article overnight in The Telegraph by Fraser Nelson. and he's incredibly well connected.
Yeah.
He is clear that there is still real danger out there. He appears to be very certain that there are well over 54 MPs who want to submit letters. They're just biding their time.
Yes.
So this is essentially just kicked down the road, and it's hard to know when that is. When Sue Gray releases her report, there are suggestions that she wants to release it in full, and she may not be very happy with this intervention from the Met Police. Who knows? What we do know about the Met Police is the other important thing that came out this morning, I think from figures just released yesterday, is that not only the Met Police, but the police across the whole country, just 6% now, 6% of crimes end up with someone being charged.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. Incredible, isn't it?
Not convicted, but charged.
I know.
So that has collapsed in 5 years from 15% down to just 6%. And I find that actually really shocking. I mean,
It's troubling, isn't it?
It's deep. I would have thought if you asked any sensible person on the street, what percentage of crimes would you hope would end up in a charge? I think instinctively people might say, oh, maybe 50%.
Yeah.
Surely that's a sensible, bold, ambitious target to
Yeah.
go by. 6%? I mean, this is it's almost like a lawless state where there's almost no point, in a sense, reporting a crime such as a robbery or a burglary or mugging, because you know that actually it's just a whole bunch of paperwork, and they're not going to do anything because they're too busy finding people sitting on a
what
park
are they
bench.
actually doing? I mean, Lord Frost has written in The Sun today, hand back control. And Lord Frost, I think, has turned out to be a very substantial figure, having left the government because it's not conservative enough, effectively. He's saying, get Brexit back on track again, lower taxes, get rid of this national insurance rise in April, get a grip on immigration, give people more choice. And he also isn't keen on the whole net zero green agenda. You know, that's the kind of Tory that we want leading the country, isn't it?
To be honest, I've tweeted out that his agenda sounds just like my agenda, so maybe he should join Reform, because that is the reality of what I think most people in this country want. And that's how you deliver a really successful, well-run, well-managed country. And you're right, he is becoming a significant figure. And following his resignation, he hasn't just sort of slunk away into the shadows. He's actually become ever more vocal, both in the media in terms of the print, but also talking to broadcast stations. And I think that he is going to continue to bang a drum. And the question is, obviously, he's a peer, so he couldn't stand should there be a vacancy for the office of Prime Minister. But the question is, who's he aligning himself with, if anybody? Or is he just putting a marker down there?
Is he speaking for a group of Tory MPs?
Is he speaking for a group? He might be. Is he speaking for one of the leading candidates if there was a vacancy? Hard to know, but he is going to be really significant over the coming weeks and months.
Because let's put it this way, right? And you guys can call me up and tell me, if you want, why you're doing what you're doing. But to say, let him get on with the job, leave it all behind, forget about Partygate, well, that's all fine, but let him get on with what job exactly? What exactly is the Prime Minister, whose name shall not be mentioned on this show, what is he doing? And what is he about to do? What is his plan? Does he have a plan? I don't think he does. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Richard Tice is here.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.